Dawn still carried the coolness of dew when Oliver Smith stepped out for his morning run. Wearing his well-worn pair of sneakers, already faded by time and determination, he followed the same path as always, a ritual that helped him maintain not only his physical fitness but also his mental sanity. Oliver, a former soldier, carried more than just the visible scars of a turbulent past. He bore within his soul the remnants of battles few could imagine. As his footsteps echoed along the dirt path, he let his mind wander freely, a practice that helped him sort through his thoughts. For Oliver, each run was a struggle to escape the shadows that haunted him, shadows from a mistake he never made, yet which had marked his life forever. However, this morning felt different. There was a tension in the air, almost palpable, causing his heart to race a bit faster. Oliver tried to convince himself it was merely the anxiety of a new day, but deep down, he knew something was about to happen. It wouldn't be long before his premonitions were confirmed, bringing forth memories he would have preferred to leave forgotten. As the sun began to rise on the horizon, bathing the path in its first golden light, Oliver felt the presence of a car approaching slowly. His instincts as a former soldier kicked in, and he slowed his pace, glancing out of the corner of his eye. Before he could identify the vehicle, he was abruptly interrupted by a strong voice booming from a megaphone. "Oliver Smith, stop immediately and put your hands where we can see them." The command came accompanied by the sound of car doors slamming shut. Oliver's heart raced, not from fear, but from contained anger. He stopped, turning slowly to face the officers who now surrounded him with calculated precision. As he raised his hands in a gesture of surrender, Oliver scrutinized each face, searching for a sign that this was all a misunderstanding, something that could be explained with a few words. However, what he saw was a look of determination he recognized all too well. It was the gaze of those who followed orders without question. One of the officers, a younger man, approached with handcuffs gleaming in the morning sun. "You are being detained on suspicion of illegal activities. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." The words were formal, but the urgency in the officer's voice revealed a sense of urgency that transcended the usual protocol. As the handcuffs clicked around his wrists, Oliver's mind raced, piecing together connections, trying to understand why he was being suddenly detained. Even though his past was filled with chapters he would rather forget, he knew nothing could justify this scene. And as he was led to the police car, a familiar figure materialized in the distance, watching everything unfold: Sheriff Henry Carter. Oliver needed no further explanations. The ghosts of his past had not only found him but were ready to haunt him once again. In that moment, as the police car drove away, leaving behind the path where Oliver used to find a bit of peace, his thoughts focused on Henry Carter. That man had been a thorn in his side since their army days, when a wrong decision by Henry led to a tragedy that Oliver still bore on his shoulders. Now, he was reappearing like an unresolved ghost that refused to disappear. Sitting in the back seat of the car, hands cuffed and mind spinning, Oliver tried to piece together the puzzle. Why would Henry be interested in resurrecting old accusations? What could he possibly gain from this? He knew the answer lay buried in a past they both shared, a past where secrets and lies formed the foundation of a bitter rivalry. As the vehicle drove through the city towards the precinct, Oliver watched the streets pass by, each one bringing back memories of a simpler time before his life had been turned upside down. Hello, my friends. I'm here to ask for a huge favor. If you enjoy the videos on our channel, I kindly ask you to subscribe and help us reach the milestone of 1,000 subscribers this month. Subscribe and help us achieve this dream. Most of our viewers watch, enjoy the content, but forget to subscribe. So please, help us reach this goal. Thank you so much, and let's continue with the video. He recalled the days when Henry was just an ambitious colleague, before his true nature was revealed in an error that cost lives. Upon arriving at the precinct, Oliver was met with curious glances and muffled whispers. The fame of his past injustice preceded him, and he could feel the weight of judgment in every stare. But there was something more in the looks he received, a mix of pity and distrust, as if everyone knew this new accusation was as false as the previous one. As he was ushered inside, passing through corridors echoing with the tales of many other sad stories, Oliver knew he needed allies. His lawyer, David Clark, was the key. If anyone could help him clear his name once again, it would be David. The question now was how to contact him before Henry managed to silence him once and for all. Oliver needed to act, and fast. Inside the cold walls of the police station, Oliver was taken to a cell that would be his temporary home. The metallic sound of the door slamming shut behind him resonated like a gong, marking the beginning of a new battle in his already tumultuous life. Sitting on the small concrete bench, he knew that every minute spent inside could be a step closer to a fate he did not deserve. In that cell, surrounded by walls that seemed to close in on him, Oliver tried to remain calm. He knew that anxiety and panic would not serve his purposes. Instead, he focused on breathing deeply, remembering the mental control techniques he had learned in the army. Those techniques were now his weapons in the fight against despair. As the hours passed, Oliver had time to reflect on his next steps. It was essential to stay one step ahead of Henry and his plans. The only way to do that was to find a way to communicate with the outside world, specifically with David Clark, his lawyer. David was more than just a simple defender. He was a friend who knew the truth about Oliver's past and was willing to fight for his justice. In the neighboring cell, a voice interrupted his thoughts. It was another prisoner, a man whose face Oliver could not see, but whose voice carried a tone of rare camaraderie in that environment. After exchanging a few conversations through the thin wall, Oliver discovered that the man also had scores to settle with Henry. That was an unexpected but welcome alliance. With an ally nearby, even if separated by concrete and iron, Oliver began to devise a plan. He needed a way to send a message to David, and perhaps, with the help of this new friend, he could find a means. Hope, however tenuous, began to sprout again in Oliver's heart as he plotted his next move in the dark chess game that his life had become. Oliver spent sleepless nights planning every detail of how he could contact his lawyer, David Clark. The silence of the cell amplified his thoughts as he mentally reviewed all the conversations he had had with his new ally, seeking a loophole, an opportunity to make his play. It was during one of those sleepless nights that an idea began to take shape. His cellmate next door, who also had his reasons to despise Henry, possessed a small radio, a forbidden artifact inside the prison. Despite the risk, the radio was the key. With it, Oliver could record a message for David, something that the lawyer would surely understand as a cry for help. With caution, the two prisoners established a plan. They would trade small favors with the guards, accumulating the necessary currency so that one of the more lenient guards would deliver the message. Oliver recorded his words carefully, choosing each phrase to ensure that only David would comprehend the true meaning behind them. The wait for the right opportunity was torturous. Oliver knew that the slightest misstep could not only ruin his plans, but also put his life and that of his cellmate at risk. But the need for justice and the urgency of his situation propelled him to move forward, despite the dangers. Finally, on a morning that seemed like so many others, the chosen guard passed by his cell for the routine inspection. With a brief gesture that would go unnoticed by most, the radio was discreetly handed over. Oliver's heart raced, knowing that every second passing now was a step closer to freedom or total ruin. In that small moment of exchange, as the radio changed hands, Oliver felt a wave of relief and anxiety. Now, everything depended on how his message would be received on the outside. As he waited, he couldn't help but feel grateful for his cellmate, a man who, despite his harsh circumstances, had proven to be an unexpected ally. Together, they had hatched their plan, shared what little they had, and now awaited the outcome of their joint courage. In the following days, the tension in the cell was palpable. Every guard's step, every glance cast in their direction, every unexpected inspection made Oliver question whether their plan had been discovered. He knew that the slightest suspicion could trigger terrible consequences for both. But he also knew there was no turning back. It was either move forward or nothing. Meanwhile, outside the prison walls, David Clark received Oliver's message. Surprised and concerned, he immediately realized the seriousness of the situation. David was well aware of Oliver's history with Henry and knew that if Oliver had gone to the trouble of sending a coded message, the situation was dire. Without wasting time, David began assembling a legal team to confront whatever was happening. Back in prison, Oliver's cellmate began to show signs of nervousness. He knew the risks, but the reality of their actions was beginning to weigh heavily. Oliver tried to keep their spirits high, emphasizing the importance of remaining calm and focused. It was a mental battle as much as a physical one, and every small success, every day without incidents, was a victory. As Oliver and his companion anxiously awaited any sign that their message had prompted action, they strengthened their friendship, sharing stories and hopes for the future. They knew that, regardless of the outcome, the bond they had formed would be a source of strength, no matter what fate awaited them. As the wait stretched on, the prison felt increasingly like a trap from which escape became ever more urgent. Oliver's cellmate, through his unconventional network of contacts, obtained alarming information. Henry Carter was planning an imminent transfer for Oliver, one that would take him to a more isolated and, undoubtedly, more dangerous location. It was a move to silence him permanently, away from the eyes of the public and anyone who might try to help him. Faced with this new threat, the need to act became even more desperate. Oliver and his cellmate began to plan not only how they would defend themselves against this transfer, but also how they could use it to their advantage. It was a risk, but the alternative was far worse. If they could delay or complicate the transfer, perhaps they could give David and his legal team enough time to intervene. They spent hours formulating a plan, considering every variable and possible response from the guards. Oliver knew that the key to any success would be precision and the element of surprise. He also knew he would need more than just his cellmate's help. He would need other prisoners and perhaps even some disgruntled staff to play in his favor. The night before the planned transfer was the longest of his life. Oliver barely slept, running through every detail in his mind, every move he needed to make. He also thought of David, hoping his friend was building a convincing case for his release. Hope mixed with fear, but Oliver's determination remained strong. He was not ready to give up, not without a fight. When the time finally came, Oliver was as prepared as he could be. He and his cellmate exchanged a look of camaraderie, knowing that the next moments would define their destinies. It was time to put their plan into action, to face danger head-on, with the hope that on the other side of that storm lay the promise of justice and freedom. The morning of the transfer dawned tense and charged, as if the very air could feel the weight of what was to come. Oliver, his face marked by determination, made his final preparations, mentally checking each step of the plan. His cellmate, equally alert, signaled that he was ready to act as agreed. As the guards approached, the prison seemed to awaken with a nervous energy. Oliver felt every beat of his heart, every glance from the guards weighing upon him like a veiled threat. But he was ready. When the moment arrived, with almost perfect synchronicity, he and his cellmate initiated a series of actions intended to confuse and delay the transfer procedures. With swift and precise movements, they managed to create a controlled chaos, involving other prisoners and even some reluctant guards. Every second of delay was vital, every confused look from the staff was a small victory. Oliver knew that each moment of hesitation on the part of the guards increased the chances of legal intervention from David. As the chaos unfolded, Oliver remained focused, using all his skill and training to keep the situation under control. He did not allow fear to take over, knowing that every action he took could very well be the key to his freedom. It was a dangerous dance on the tightrope of justice, but Oliver was determined to fight until the last second, hoping that outside, David was doing his part. The disorder in the prison reached its peak, and amid the chaos, Oliver saw his chance. With the guards' attention diverted, he executed the riskiest part of the plan, the escape. Moving with a blend of military precision and cautious desperation, he slipped through shadows and less watched corridors, each step a calculation to avoid detection. Outside the prison, the cold morning air hit his face, a poignant reminder of the freedom he was so close to achieving. Oliver ran, his muscles recalling the familiar rhythm of morning jogs, now fueled by a very different adrenaline. He could not allow himself to think about what would happen if he were recaptured. His mind was solely focused on putting as much distance as possible between himself and Henry Carter's oppressive shadow and finding a safe hiding place. He had planned his route in advance, every turn and hiding spot mapped in his mind during the long hours in his cell. Oliver knew that true freedom was still distant, but each step took him further away from the suffocating grip of Henry Carter and closer to a possible reunion with justice. Upon reaching a small abandoned warehouse he had marked as his first safe point, Oliver allowed himself a brief moment to catch his breath. The danger still lurked around every corner, and he needed to be prepared for the next stage of his journey. As he hid in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to continue, Oliver reflected on how far he was willing to go to clear his name and protect his life. Oliver had little time to absorb the fleeting sensation of freedom when he heard the distant sound of sirens. His heart raced, not from exhaustion, but from a renewed sense of urgency. Knowing that every moment was crucial, he left his temporary hiding place, diving back into the shadows of the city that was just starting to awaken. The streets were busier now, with the first signs of dawn bringing people out to begin their day. Oliver blended in among the passers-by, his gaze constantly sweeping the environment for signs of danger. He changed his clothes several times, discarding the identity of a prison fugitive for a more anonymous appearance of an early morning worker. But the real test came when he reached an alley he knew was a frequent meeting point for Henry and his men. There, hidden in the gloom, Oliver watched as several police cars arrived, and Henry got out, his furious expression issuing orders. Oliver could feel the tension in the air, each of Henry's words laced with venom and determination. In a moment that seemed to stretch on forever, Henry's eyes swept the alley, passing over Oliver without recognition. Oliver's camouflage worked, but he knew that safety was temporary. He needed to move again, to disappear before Henry could put the pieces together. With adrenaline coursing through his veins, Oliver silently backed away, each step a careful calculation to avoid detection as he planned his next move. As Oliver cautiously distanced himself from the alley, the sounds of sirens and Henry's orders still echoed in his mind. He knew he wasn't safe until he put significant distance between himself and his pursuers. The city, now fully awake, offered both camouflage and risks, and Oliver seized every opportunity to blend in and disappear into the crowd. Turning a corner, Oliver spotted a small cafe, a perfect spot to take temporary refuge and plan his next move. Sitting at a table in the back, he pretended to read the newspaper while keeping his eyes and ears alert for any signs of danger. His phone, carefully kept during the escape, was now in his hands, ready to be used at the right moment. It was then that the unexpected happened. Oliver received a message from David, his lawyer, informing him that FBI agents were en route to intervene. The news brought a mix of relief and anxiety. On one hand, federal intervention could mean clearing his name and protection. On the other, it exposed him to new risks until everything was clarified. Oliver remained in the cafe, his disguise still intact, watching as the FBI agents arrived. They approached Henry, who was now just a few blocks away, their serious expressions indicating that the game was coming to an end. Oliver watched, almost in disbelief, as justice began to unfold before his eyes, bringing with it the promise of a new and fairer chapter in his life. With the conclusion of the FBI operation, Oliver watched from a distance, almost as a spectator in his own life, as Henry Carter was arrested. The charges against him, once impenetrable and overwhelming, began to dissolve like smoke in the wind. For the first time in a long while, Oliver felt he could breathe without the weight of pursuit on his back. In the days that followed, Oliver worked closely with David and federal agents to fully clarify his case. Each meeting, each statement was a step toward his formal exoneration. The truth about Henry and his machinations finally came to light, bringing justice not only for Oliver but for others who had been wronged by the former sheriff. After clearing his name, Oliver took some time to reflect on his next steps. The newly gained freedom was sweet, but it came with the need to rebuild his life. He decided to use his experience to help others facing injustices, working alongside civil rights organizations and giving talks on the importance of justice and resilience. Finally, with peace restored, Oliver found a new purpose for his life. He looked to the future not as a man marked by the past, but as someone who had faced the shadows and emerged stronger. His new beginning was a testament to his determination, to justice, and to the hope that had never abandoned him, even in the darkest moments. As we follow Oliver Smith's journey, we witness not only a fight for justice but also a testament to human resilience. Oliver faced adversities that many of us fear, but his determination to clear his name and reclaim his life inspires us to question, how far would you go to defend truth and justice in your own life? This story invites us to reflect on our own battles and the strength we possess to confront them. What changes can you make today to address the injustices around you? How can you use your experiences, no matter how challenging they may be, to positively impact the lives of others? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to continue following stories like Oliver's that not only inform but also transform. Click on the videos on the screen now to explore more content that can inspire change in your life. Join us on this journey of discovery and transformation.